go again. Buckle up. Now, I believe that Eliana Alaya has some good parents, so we're probably very focused on her. They're not poor, so I believe that would help her through a lot of that. But let's say through the stress and everything, she decides that she's going to drink. On those days, they would give her no stress. Maybe even on a Friday night, she goes out. If she sleeps with a guy, it may not be stress for a week or two. But until she goes to the bar again, after a certain period of time, they'll stress her out or stress whoever the victim is. So again, risky behavior, unhealthy behavior is promoted based upon relaxation during that time period. They're murderers. They're devils, and they'll go to hell, regardless of what they tell you they're doing. God never gave anybody permission to do those things to people's lives, to get them to go in this direction or that direction. In fact, they lie. The outcomes are the reverse of what they say they're trying to do, unless they're honest and tell you they're killing the person. But they usually lie about the reason. Is what the government's been up to. And again, the government includes private sector criminal criminals at this point. So it's like the worst day of the month here, probably the worst day for the rest of the year until the winter again. Worst weather day. It doesn't feel as cold as it says it is. Because it's kind of humid and overcast. So apparently the UN has issued, now that Trump has stopped reining in evil Iran. Go past the Harbor Lane. Use the right lane to take the US 19 truck south Midnight Road. Now they're going to say that Iran is evil. US 19 truck south ramp. That's where we are. Continue for 5 miles. I mean, your propaganda is sickle. Iran pays a lot of people. They happen to be liberal. Any sense, but most corrupt people, and that's how it works for them. I don't know. Well, some people are corrupt, but they'll draw a line at taking money from an enemy of the United States. Honor among thieves. a bit of my coffee on the way out. Pulled up there. So I imagine we have eyes all over the place watching Iran. Well, the thing is, they were allowed to get too big. They should never have been able to get this one. But whatever got them to this point, or whatever empowered them to take over in the first place, has been in place for decades. It may have been something like Marxism or liberal or something like that, because the idea was that, it was a people's revolution or something. Of course, like every other people's revolution, a big scam. So I'm peeling some stuff when I'm quiet. Something's in the air. This area down here is pretty bad. Got stuff in the psychic world, in the spiritual world. I need one more item to cut the steep incline, either a smaller lawnmower, lighter lawnmower, or one of those heavier weed whackers with like a circular saw blade. Not sure which way to go with it. I'd rather go with the lawnmower because the handle, it's bilateral handle, whereas on a weed whacker, you assume a crooked position. But it may not be any better. My lawnmower I have is very heavy, and it has the self-propelled option. So not having a self-propelled option on a lawnmower that weighs half the weight may not actually be much different. You just hit that, self-propelled and keep pulling it up. You just tilt it a little bit to the left. If you're, going to incline is to your right. So you just tilt it a little bit to the left and hit that power, and it'll pull it back up. But you're mowing it like, it's only like a little bit more for the mower. Well, I wish they. Well, I could get a regular like 6-inch weed whacker thing off of Temu, like local, no import fees, for like $30, under $30. But if I want the 12-inch blade, which makes more sense, I'm looking at like 100 and something, which puts it up with the lawnmower. I'm thinking that's what's probably going to make the incline because the lawnmower, it's always going to have that want to flip over thing a little bit. The only thing that told me back again is that kind of crooked stance you have to take with a weed whacker, and you have to, when you're on an incline like that, you really are using a lot of muscles to stabilize. I don't wrench my back any more than it is. I'd have been fine if they just stayed away because I figured out all the process, but that's what they kept doing, kept torturing me around massage and all that type of thing. It's torture. I mean, it's psychological torture. And it's sometimes worse than physical torture, but you can't say, hey, look, they're torturing me. They'll say, oh, nothing's happened. He's crazy. Which they still do, I'm sure. But they'll go to hell. So they're talking about a case in the 80s. Who was it? I don't know who the famous guy was, but again, oh, was it who was it? Was it United Kingdom? But it was a bunch of older men and drug use and alcohol, and that fits. Like I was trying to explain how it was back then, and they were interviewing the guy. He was like, it was fun at first, yeah, until the sex hit. It's like, yeah, you go there, you get a drink, hang out. So that's what it was back in the 70s and 80s. Now the question is whether that's what happened. What started the deep state thing. I don't know. Where they were paranoid. I mean, obviously Harvey Weinstein. Like for years they would deny something like that, but obviously Harvey Weinstein contacted the deep state, and that's how that happened. That's how he started to put people on his victims. It was interesting to read. He did something weird. I mean, he grabbed. I didn't quite get it, but he grabbed a knife. Like I guess, again, sexual abuse causes violence. I explained that to all of you, right? So, but he grabbed a knife when he was going into the room with the guy, and he said he pulled a knife on the guy in the room, and he said, "I'm a judge." He backed up and said, "I'm a judge," and I think he blacked out or something. He said he felt a pain in his head and he blacked out. I've got no idea what that is. But they were explaining who was part of this group. It was like one famous guy, and then like there were other famous people too. But some were judges that weren't so famous. I think he was saying something like to hang out all day drinking, and then at night the pervs would come in, pedophiles. What was considered perverted years. It's weird because, and it's still bullshit though, right? Yeah. Well, because they're more vocal about the pedophile, the pedophile. But I don't think it's actually changed. But the other side of the coin is it's more sexual. So things that they would call pervert, like when I was on that cam girl thing, and I was really trying to find somebody to be with because the deep state was blocking me everywhere else. And but they would call themselves the pervs. It was pretty weird, but he did jokingly. So it's like what I'm trying to say is, things that were considered perverted. It's a scam. It's more scammy than it ever was. The pervs are calling everybody else the perv. The pedophiles are calling everybody else the pedophile. I guarantee Rose McGowan would have been one of the biggest operations they would have engaged in was sexualization. And then she would have been the perv. If they would have tried to make her pedophile, they would try to make her, no doubt. All right, so I got to try to find where this thing is. Yeah, I got this warranty with my glasses, and they said, you just come in right before a year, you definitely have scratches on them. Most people do, and you get a new pair of lenses. I didn't think I'd ever make it, but I did. Which that's enough for Butler County because that that's what powered it and moved the blocks away. I knew it was blocked, and then all of a sudden one day it just stopped. Like if you want to do something, if the community is a good community, within a few days you'll be able to start moving in that direction, as long as it's something good like that. With bad community, they'll block it up. You won't get anywhere. Satan's paying. Well, the thing is, if somebody was a pedophile in the '70s and they invested in IBM, you know, they got rich off it, and then all of a sudden they were powerful if they weren't already, with money. And Microsoft. I'm up over here. All right. Stay peaceful. Praise God in all that you do. Praise